Now, there were three of you working on this case. I'm intrigued by how that kind of team authorship works in practice. Did you have shared values? Did you have disagreements about the approach? Well, just generally, how did the writing process work for you?
I was sitting in Boston, and Marc was, of course, sitting in the Middle East and traveling regularly to Saudi Arabia. And Jérôme was in Paris, but in regular contact with IKEA in Sweden. So they should really speak to this issue.
I'm Lebanese, so Lebanon's considered one of the more liberal countries in the Middle East. However, working in the rest of the region, definitely I'm exposed to the different cultures, and that creates two types of people in this region. One, the culturally sensitive and appreciative of the different cultures, and two, some form of resistance and kind of disacknowledgement for these differences. I'm more on the former camp than the latter. Working in this region for the last 10, 15 years, I created some form of cultural sensitivity. So when I started working on this case, Professor Karthik and Jérôme had already a few weeks or a few days of writings before I had joined. And the interesting thing, coming on board, I came from the perspective as wanting to represent the region in this case, even though perhaps I'm not from Saudi Arabia. However, due to my work and knowledge and acquaintances and friends in the region, I felt a sense of obligation to represent the region, which I think brought in some form of a balance to the case, especially that, you know, even though I'm sure all of us wanted this case to be balanced, but our upbringing and our surroundings brings a different perspective to the case. And I remember the first time I read the drafts that Professor Karthik and Jérôme had written, I had some form of, reaction, personal reaction, where few words caught me off guard. I don't recall which ones exactly, but I remember that these words were not words that I would have chosen in that particular context. And that's where we went back and forth, and it took a bit more time to reach a place where we would feel this case is objective, because getting to an objectivity while having these different perspectives is very hard, versus just having an objectivity for someone living in Boston or someone living in Paris. And that, I think, was quite interesting to me personally, as I was just starting on that job and caught between, the different perspectives for this case.
Yes, indeed. No, I must agree with Marc. It was a really interesting process. To come back to your question on why we were three people, writing this case in the different perspectives. I think, as you said, Marc, we started writing this case with public material and material from IKEA. And so, I would say, quite automatically, we had more perspective, coming from the company. And we've been used to working with, large companies, and especially IKEA, which is very liberal and very progressive company. So we were kind of using, the same terms, and perhaps that's what, caught Marc off guard, the same terms and the same, I would say, terminology used in all the articles, the public material, talking about this issue for IKEA in Saudi Arabia. So I think, yeah, coming from that place and also being in Paris, and being used to working with companies, so perhaps, using the same, the material from companies, I think it was very useful to have Marc coming and really, put us in front of, the contradictions, or perhaps I would say the limits of the method we had been using